All right, so if you're just joining this video, it got started a little late. We're starting cell cycle in cancer. Cancer is the uncontrolled growth and division of cells with mutated DNA that invades neighboring tissue. And just in class, we're doing something on the side real quick, just because we all live in Florida, the Sunshine State. This is the A, B, C, D, E's of skin cancer. A stands for abnormal shape. You don't need to know this for a test. This is just little things that will come in handy because some of you might be worshiping the sun a lot. You might like to hang by the pool or at the beach, and it happens. Well, if you have a cell that, like, see this mole I have? I know it's hard for some of you to see. It's like a perfect circle. That's not bad. If it looked like a big blob, like somebody hit me with a paintball, that might be a problem. B is border. If it has an abnormal border where it doesn't have like a definitive demarcation between where the mole ends and the skin begins, it looks kind of blended in, that could be a cause for alert. C is color. This little mole I have is brown. There's a lot of melanocytes in one spot. But if you had a mole or a growth somewhere that was like black and green and yellow and red and brown, that's not normal. You want to get that checked out. D is diameter. About 8 millimeters, which is typically a pencil eraser. If I can take this pen and cover up my little mole here, I'm fine. And I can't see the mole, I'm good. But if I were to put this pen on my arm and I can still see it, it's gotten bigger. So I need to go to get that checked out. And then E is evolution. If it's changing over time, that's all evolution means, change over time. If it's changing and changing color, changing shape, if it's rough and it wasn't rough before, it used to be smooth and now it's rough, and that's not good. You should go get that checked out. But being in Florida, be careful of that. I told you my dad has had a few skin cancer scares. He's a baby boomer. He's going to be working outside till the day he drops. Well, he's 76 now, and he has been going to the dermatologist like as regularly as we go to the grocery store. He recently had this weird growth he had like a sore on his arm, and it wasn't healing. That's not normal. So I told him, you need to go to the dermatologist. And they say, yeah, we don't like the look of that. We're going to make you an appointment. We're going to cut that thing out. And so they had to take out, I knew they were going to take out multiple layers of skin. So I was joking with them. I said, Dad, how was it at the deli? And they just had to cut. Yep, still there. Cut the next layer. Yep, still there. Cut. All right, still there. Cut another layer. He eventually had a dent in his skin. And eventually they got deep enough where it didn't penetrate anymore. And then, okay, we got it all out of there. And it's finally starting to heal back. He's in his 70s. He probably got that damage when he was in his 30s, 20s, and 40s. Sometimes cancer doesn't show up for decades. Some cancer takes weeks or months. Some cancer takes years or decades to show up. So you guys are teenagers now. You're hopefully healthy. You think you're bulletproof. Just be cautious about what you do. I know someone who's in her 60s. She looks like she is a 500-year-old mummy. Sorry if that sounds critical, but I'm just being honest with you. The reason why is because when she was in high school, she would lather herself with baby oil, skip school, go to the pool, go to the beach, and just sunbake, 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 sunbake. And now her skin is very exhausted. It's burned up, sun damage galore. And she has scars everywhere from doctors taking a little of this, little of this, little of that off of her that didn't look very good to the dermatologist. So, and she did that when she was in high school. So word to the wise, be smart. Okay, let's begin with benign. It is pronounced benign, not benign. Benign is going to be harmless and non-growing. Most cancers begin as benign. So let's say that you're doing a self-inspection and you detect a little lump in your breast, or you detect something on your side, or maybe in your mouth, or on your ear. You guys need to check your bodies. And I'll tell you another quick story in a moment. And you find something that wasn't there before. Oh, that's interesting. No one knows your body better than you. No one on this earth knows your body better than you. So you need to definitely know what normal is and what abnormal is. And so let's say you find something, you go to the dermatologist checks it out, and they say, yeah, that doesn't worry me. Keep your eyes on it. Let me know if it changes. But I don't think it's a problem. That's exactly what my dermatologist said about this. I brought that to his attention. He goes, I don't think that's a problem. Keep your eyes on it. If it changes, we'll deal with it. But I don't think it's a problem. Well, benign is harmless. My dad has a little fatty tumor on his back. I bet we all have seen a dog with a bunch of fatty tumors on their belly or on their abdomen. Those are called lipomas, by the way. What do you think lip means? Like liposuction, lipid, fat. And oma means mass. So fatty mass. They're harmless. My dad's had that on his back at least my whole life, and my mom is actually saying it's getting smaller. So it's not invading any neighboring tissue. If you ever get a lipoma, you can remove it. It's mostly for vanity. It's not going to hurt you. But if you don't like having a little bump, then do what you got to do. And then we have malignant. Malignant means it has the ability to spread. So if I looked at this little mole 2 years from now and it has spread, it might be malignant. That means that it is spreading to neighboring tissue. I need to stop it in its tracks before it gets into a lot of tissue where it can't be tracked down anymore. Cancers that end up being deadly to people typically are malignant. They're malignant cancers or malignant tumors. Okay, so what I want to do next are causes of cancer. Well, first one is totally spontaneous. You guys could play by the rules. You could eat right, not smoke, not drink, not live near a nuclear power plant. All the things that could give you cancer, you don't do. And then you could get it. That was my mom's argument all the time. My parents smoked when I was growing up. I would always, when I was in elementary school, learning all about how smoking is so bad, smoking causes cancer, I go to my mom, Mom, stop smoking, it's bad for you. She goes, I could get hit by a truck tomorrow. If it's my time, it's my time. You know, now I'm thinking, hit by a truck? Mom, that's why we have stop signs. If it's your time, that's your time. That's ridiculous. And then she'll say, oh, I know someone that smoked their whole life and they never coughed. Okay, that's called anecdotal. Where if I were to say Zespina got to play in high school today, that doesn't mean everybody did. That's not the rule. That's not the trend. So sometimes people tend to glorify the exception to the rule. If Zespina walked across Dale Mabry High School blindfolded and made it to the other side, Dale Mabry Highway, and she made it to the other side, that doesn't mean everybody can do it. So spontaneous simply means that you get a random mutation, totally random, that leads to cancer. What? What'd you say?
No, she was saying something about spontaneous. I was saying that.
You could play by all the rules. Those pictures I showed you at the beginning of class with the oral cancer, maybe that person's never gone near a cigarette. It just happens. And that's sometimes the case. It just happens. You could have familial, which means it is genetic. Perhaps cancer runs in your family. In my family, no wisdom teeth runs on my dad's side. I had a student a few years ago, no baby little piggy toe on the right foot, ran on her mom's side of the family. Yeah, weird. It's a mutation. It is what it is. Some people have some people have an extra tendon in their forearm. Maybe it might be one forearm, might be both forearms. It's from our ancestry of primates in the trees. It helped you grasp things better. Some people still have it, some people don't. It's a mutation. If you don't have it, it's a mutation. The ability for adult humans to drink the milk of a cow and not get sick is a mutation. So that you pass it on from generation to generation. There was a story on 60 Minutes a long time ago of a woman that had breast cancer. Her mother had breast cancer. Her grandmother had breast cancer. And she was so worried that when she married her husband and they wanted to start a family, that she was going to pass on the cancer gene to her kids. Well, long story short, they did this thing called gene editing, and they were able to find the cancer gene in embryos. And what they did is that her and her husband were going to have in vitro babies, test tube babies. And I think they made like 7 embryos, 7 sperm, 7 eggs, seven embryos. A geneticist was able to identify the embryos that did have the cancer gene passed on. And so they made sure not to put them in her uterus. They put the embryos that did not have the cancer gene in her uterus. So her children will be the first members of her lineage that do not have breast cancer in the family, because they were able to decipher the genetics and kick out the ones that did have the gene. There's a movie that came out 20 plus years ago called Gattaca that I want to show you guys sometime this year that is exactly that technology. It's basically, you've heard of Build-A-Bear. Nowadays, we have Build-A-Baby. You can design your child's intelligence, athletic ability, hair, skin, eyes, all of it. Gender, you can do it all. Or you could just go the old-fashioned way and just, no geneticist whatsoever. Just let nature take over. And then we have environmental. Environmental is typically exposure to carcinogens. You know what a carcinogen is? It's a cancer-causing substance. Could be cigarettes. Could be radiation. Could be pollution. It's one of the big reasons we want to have clean air and clean water. We don't want a bunch of pollution in there to toxify our bodies. It can lead to cancer. All right. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Next, let's go to the characteristics of cancer cells. Now, as humans have about 200 to 250 different cell types. What do you call a cell in your nervous system, like your brain or your spinal cord? A neuron, that's right. You call a red blood cell an erythrocyte. Erythro means red. You guys have had that term before. Leukocyte is a white blood cell. Hepatocyte, do you remember what hepa means? Like hepatitis? What organ? Liver, good. We have muscle fibers, which are our muscle cells. And we have melanocytes, just to name a few. Melanocytes are your skin color cells. Skin, hair, and eye color. We all have very different types of cells. And what we say is that these cells are differentiated. If any of you decide to go into medicine, you want to be a doctor or a vet or a nurse or anything, you will be able to tell the difference between a bone cell and a cartilage cell and a skin cell and a blood cell and all the various types of cells. You'll learn it like it's a roster of SpongeBob SquarePants characters. You'll be able to tell them all apart. Cancer cells don't do this. They are not differentiated. So that's going to be our first one. Cancer cells lack differentiation. Cancer cells lack differentiation, which means they are not different. If I were to hold a brain cancer cell in one hand and a bladder cancer cell in the other, and I said, Ben, which one is which? You probably wouldn't be able to tell me. Here's a bunch of, let's say here's a bunch of bladder cells. Okay. Just pretend, here's a bunch of bladder cells. Here's a neuron. You know what a neuron looks like. You got the dendrites, you got the cell body, you got the axon, you got the myelin sheath. This is a neuron. Look at how different they are. Every cell is designed for a very specific function. Here's a cancer cell. I mean, the heck is that thing? They're non-differentiated. You really can't tell the difference from a breast cancer cell, from a brain cancer cell, from a heart cancer cell, to a stomach cancer cell, to a bone cancer cell. They're all just weird. Okay. So they look distinctly different. I will tell you, if I gave you a quiz and I said, I had 50 cells on the worksheet, and I said, identify the cancer cells, it would be a no-brainer. They definitely don't look right. All right, the next one. Cancer cells have abnormal nuclei. Nuclei is plural for nucleus. The reason that they have abnormal nuclei is because the DNA is mutated. Okay, moving on. Cancer cells do not undergo apoptosis. Has anyone ever heard of or seen the movies The Matrix? You ever heard of them? Well, it's a trilogy, and in the end of the first one, the hero of the film kills the bad guy. He blows him up. And then in the second movie, the sequel, the bad guy's back. And the hero is a little surprised to see him. And the bad guy says, you did something to me that I thought was impossible. You destroyed me. And I knew the rules. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I couldn't. I refused. I refused to stay. I refused to disobey. And I had to come back. And what he did is he ended up multiplying himself. So rather than just be one bad guy, there was like 50 copies of the bad guy. He not only regenerated himself, but he was told to die. And when he died, he didn't. And instead, he did the exact opposite of dying. He multiplied himself. And so you got the hero trying to fight 50 different copies of the same bad guy. Every time I see that film, I wonder if they thought of cancer when they came up with this plot point of him coming back and multiplying himself. So normally normally cells that have damaged DNA go through apoptosis. Normally, cells with damaged DNA undergo apoptosis. Cancer cells don't play those rules. So this just makes me think of that villain. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I wouldn't. I couldn't. I refused. I refused to obey. I was compelled to disobey. That's exactly what cancer does. And it does the exact opposite. It just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. Okay, next, a couple more. Cancer cells form tumors. Normal cells possess something that we all call contact inhibition. Have you all ever had this happen to you before? Hey, Mark, can I borrow you for a minute? Sure, just stand right there and face the window. You guys ever had this happen? Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. You ever had this happen where you just stand somewhere and someone does this? Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. You ever had that happen? I stopped because I possess contact inhibition. What that means is when a cell bumps into another cell, it knows to stop proliferating. It knows to stop dividing. You ever notice when you have a wound or an injury, the wound is healed over, but then it stops healing. The healing process is complete. That's because our cells possess contact inhibition. When cells hit other cells, they stop. They stop multiplying. Cancer don't play those rules. Cancer just keeps bulldozing right through them. This is why they invade neighboring tissue. I like to give you guys this analogy. I may have said it to you before, so just play along. Let's say your parents get you a car for your birthday. It's not a new car, it's a used car, but it's new to you. And you pop the hood and there's a little bit of rust on the engine. The engine works fine. There's a little bit of rust though. You don't pay it any mind. You go to school every day, turn your car on, turns on fine, come home, blah, 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 blah. 6 months later, you're noticing that it's getting a little harder to turn your car on. Pop the hood, check out that engine. That rust is spreading. It's starting to cover the important components of your engine. You go, car still runs. It's fine. About a year later, you go out to your garage, turn on the car, didn't turn on. Pop the hood, look at the engine, covered in rust. And all the important components of the engine will no longer work because the rust is keeping them from working. Car's not going to work anymore. The car is an organism. Dog, cat, person, fish. The engine is a vital organ. And the rust, as you might have guessed, is the cancer. The way that cancer can cause death and other issues, complications, is that it will prevent an organ from performing its organly duties. It won't allow it to work. You don't need your breast to live. They're not a vital organ. But when my aunt's breast cancer metastasized to her brain and her liver and her spinal cord, You do need those things to live. And those things, those body parts were not working right. They weren't able to do their jobs. Their jobs are keeping you alive. And so she eventually passed away. It was very sad, but it wasn't a shock. I mean, she had had breast cancer for 20 years, come and go, and finally just came back like fire, and that was it. But this is what cancer does, and it goes into neighboring tissue. And this is where I want to switch over to your PowerPoint. Let me switch over to this. Okay. So if you look at this image here, you got a little cancer cell on the very top. This is from your PowerPoint. And then that cancer cell is just going to divide and divide and divide and divide. Well, here, this right there, that is a lymphatic vessel. A lymphatic vessel is part of your lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system is basically a system of vessels that drain your tissues of extra fluid. Now, part of your lymphatic system is your immune system. And your immune system has white blood cells, which are like the police officers of your body. Well, a lot of your immune cells mature in these structures called lymph nodes. You have a high concentration of lymph nodes in your throat, your axillary region, which is your armpits, and your pelvic region where your thighs connect to your body. If you ever had I remember like once a year, I get a little sick and my lymph nodes swell. If you ever heard the expression, man, my glands are swollen, those are not your glands, those are your lymph nodes. It's actually not a bad thing because that means your immune system is active. They're trying to fight this infection you've got or this ailment, this flu or cold. But what you don't want to have happen is have a tumor spread to your lymphatic vessels. Ladies, if you haven't been taught, I recommend that and this goes for guys too, you just, like I said earlier today, you have to check your bodies. No one knows your bodies better than you. And if you feel like a little lump or something where there shouldn't be, you should get that checked out because what you do not want to face is a lump, which is a possible tumor, get within close proximity of your lymphatic vessels because your lymphatic vessels are like the highway of your body. They can go anywhere. If you jump onto I-275, if you make the right lefts and rights, you could get to Anchorage, Alaska. You can go anywhere, North and South America. A lymphatic vessel in your armpit can lead to your liver, can lead to your brain, can lead to your stomach. It can go anywhere. And so you want to stop it from getting to that point. Blood vessels are no different. And then in this final image, you see the tumor coming out the other side of the lymphatic vessel. And so that's the trick. You want to stop the tumors from proliferating throughout your body. That's called metastasis. A few weeks ago, I texted you guys a message said, if you're interested in football and feel-good stories, there's a former Plant High School student and football player on ESPN right now playing football. Well, some of y'all know that the Culpepper family attended Plant High School, and I think there were 2 boys and a girl, maybe more, I'm not aware. And Rex Culpepper was a quarterback here at Plant, and he got recruited to play at Syracuse up in New York. Well, he said in the story that ESPN did, and I'd be happy to show it to you maybe on Monday, he woke up and he saw there's some pain and swelling and redness, and we go check it out, and he called his parents, and he had cancer. He had testicular cancer. And so they took him to Moffitt. He got treated, had to go through chemo and all that stuff, surgery, and he recovered. He's in remission. He's up at Syracuse playing football right now. He was 20 years old, I believe. I might be a year or 2 off. Barely older than you guys. So these things happen to young people too. So just be proactive in making sure that you're checking yourself and not letting things get out of hand. You don't have to be an old man or an old woman to come down with something like this. All right, the last thing I would like to get to is cancer. Let's see, what is it? Cancer cells undergo metastasis. I am going to ask you to pronounce that word when you come in on Monday. It was written on the board. It is pronounced metastasis, not metastasis. Cells undergo metastasis and angiogenesis. For those of you that have had to go to Sunday school, I'm sure you know what genesis means. What does it mean? Beginning, creation, right? Well, angio means blood vessels, or blood vessels or circulation. And genesis means creation of, or creation. So let's go through metastasis first, and then we'll get to the other one. Metastasis is basically cancer spreading through the body. Not to belabor the point, I know I'm bringing it up a lot. You might get a little tired of me talking about it. I could say my aunt's cancer was metastatic. Metastatic is another way to say it was metastasizing. My aunt's breast cancer metastasized to her brain. And then you have angiogenesis. There are a lot of rules that cancer doesn't follow. Here's one rule they must follow. They need oxygen. Blood carries oxygen, so they will create their own blood vessels to get that O2. They will create their own blood vessels to get oxygen to help them continue to make energy through cell respiration. All right, that's a good place to end it for today. We will continue this on Monday. Hope you learned something.